You're listening to the My Postgrad Life podcast. I'm your host, Will Musto. Today, I talked with Anthony Bruno, also known as Sal. Sal is a real estate broker in Boston, Massachusetts, a business owner, and someone who's described as having no off switch. Hear what Sal has to say about how he became Boston's youngest broker, what it means to give back to the people you love, and how to go about your own apartment hunting. Let's begin. Can you give me a rundown, and we'll show the picture up on the screen, but can you give me a rundown how you became Boston's youngest broker?
Yeah, that was that's a longer story than it is I think we have time for, but my dad, I was in high school when my dad I was a junior at PCD, and it was going into like the spring, and my dad like slapped me up on the head like one day and was like, "Go get your real estate license." And I was like, "Can I just like mow the lawn?" Like I was like, "The fuck?" I was like, "Dad, it's a Sunday. Like, what's going on?" And my dad always had a goal for my brother and I in a lot of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
He had a set plan, which I appreciate. I don't not in like some LeVar Ball like type of thing, but he knew what he wanted us to do.
Yeah.
And I think, not to bring up my brother right away, I think Ray somewhat fell short of that because he was supposed to become like a major like drone pilot and everything. And we were supposed to like link up together because, as you know now today, like drones and real estate are, like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I got my real estate license, my salesperson license, which to like the non-realtor out there, like there is a difference, but it's in all things considered doesn't really matter all that much. And I started practicing real estate in high school. I was posting ads, working for somebody, and then eventually it kept going. At one point, we'll skip over a lot of it, but at one point I was fired. Like shit wasn't going well.
Oh, damn.
I was fired from Keller Williams. Not let go, like distinctly fired. Nothing bad. I'll be honest. They were just like, "You don't know what you're doing," and I was like, "Hey, like you're probably right. Like I'm in frickin' college." Then I joined up with It's so funny. My dad has always been the one to get me into. My dad was always the one to get me into real estate, and my mom like not so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in Florida, and my mom was like, "Oh my gosh, Sal, like I met this really cool guy named Thatcher on a trolley tour in Boston. He does real estate in Boston. You should talk to him." And I'm like, "All right, Mom, like thanks a lot. Like I'm really gonna listen to this guy. Like clearly he's not good at real estate because he's working part-time, like as a trolley driver or whatever." And so I got fired from KW, and the first thing I did was call Thatcher, set up a meeting, and I ended up joining Encore Realty like the next week. And I have to give them a lot of love. Dave Monheit is a tremendous gentleman. Really gave me room to soar in a lot of ways. I would say I was a month away from like quitting and just giving up on it, and he helped me go in a lot. He helped me, really learn the business, learn the industry. And then from there, I got my broker's license, and I will admit, it took me both times. It took me a couple of tries. I'm sure my brother told you, getting the salesperson license while I was in high school was rough. I'll be very honest. It is. I failed that thing like 5 times. But I would say like, what do you call a lawyer who passes the bar on the 3rd try?
A lawyer.
He's a lawyer, so
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
Anyway, it took me a couple of tries, but I was also like, I was studying for the SATs at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like this was very much on the back burner, and I was trying my best. And then as for the broker's exam, that one only took me like 2 or 3 tries, but one of them I took it remotely, which was totally fine because it was still like post-pandemic. And one time I got kicked out because they thought I was cheating, which I wasn't.
How did that? Wait,
Hand to God,
why did they think you were cheating?
So what happened was, you take it virtually just as we are on now, and the questions on these exams, just like with any sort of like state exam, they're not easy. Like they're not straightforward.
Oh, yeah.
They're written backwards, upside down. Like they'll use very weird terminology. And I'm on like question 16, and I'm like trying to like mouth the words, really trying to understand it because the questions are tough. And they like slap me with a warning, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like I guess I'll just shut up for the next hour and a half." And then maybe like 10 questions later, I'm really struggling. And then I'm like, "Oh my God, it's D." and like hook gone, like you're out of here, like. And I was so upset, I threw my pen at the wall.
Do they think there was somebody else like in the room with you? That's
Yeah,
why it
exactly.
was,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
that's why. Yeah.
You were yelling out the questions. That's man, that must have been the weirdest because I went and got my real estate license a couple years
Right.
prior, and I mean it was still in person. So
Hmm.
it was. I mean, I was in a room, and I guess you can't.
Yeah, the PSI rooms. Yeah, yeah, I've been
Yeah,
there. Yeah, they suck.
those things, and then they're like in the middle of nowhere,
Middle
and
of nowhere.
you're just in there with like six other people, and
Hmm.
it's the weirdest thing. There is a requirement. I always remember to get your broker's license. It's not you can't just have your real estate license then go automatically your broker's license. Correct?
Right.
Right.
Hmm.
It's like a
Yeah, yeah.
couple years, and then you have to do some amount of
You have to
deals.
do it like for 3 years consecutively and work a minimum of I think it's like 40 hours a week, and you have to get like all your previous like brokers to sign off on it,
Damn.
and then you can go ahead and take it. Yeah. So I was a junior in college when that was happening, and my junior year was definitely on the. I lived a pretty calm college life.
Hmm.
I wasn't. I didn't do a whole lot, and like that was tough because I was living with five other kids at the time, and they would go to bed at 1 a.m. and I
Yeah.
was like the latest I had ever stayed up was 10 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm trying to. This is like the fall semester, so people are definitely going wild or it's crazy. I say fall semester can be crazier in some aspects,
Yeah.
and like I was like, all right, 7 o'clock, might as well rip an Adderall. Like let's just study for the night, and eventually I got it, but it was I'd say junior was the most difficult time for me, and pairing that with having to pass was interesting.
What made you decide to pursue going further with the broker's license rather than just staying the regular salesperson?
Yeah, I'd say like I did have it goes sort of back to like my dad's vision that I
Yeah.
would say, and it was, and meanwhile, like my dad will tell you, I think you might have met my dad a few times. My
Hmm.
dad, Algebra 1 as a senior, right? Really could not pass a test to save his life. Can't spell, borderline illiterate, but he's a smart fellow when it comes. Like my dad built houses. My dad always wanted to be a broker and do that, but he was like, I'm not even going to try. He's like,
Yeah.
there's no point. He's like, I can't even read the questions, you know? Um, and so I stuck with it, and I feel like the part of the probably one of the reasons I was able to really do that and succeed was because I started out so young
Hmm.
that I was able to make a million mistakes before the next person,
Mm.
and I was able to fall on my face and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm still in college,
Yeah.
like I'm what a worst case I have to go to econ in the morning, like
Yeah.
there was nothing bad that could happen,
Yeah.
and I remember I had a couple of. I mean, you can get your broker's license and still act as like a regular, like normal, like sales agent.
Hmm.
You can be a broker under a broker, and I know the terminology gets kind of wonky there, and I totally get it to like a layman out there who might not understand what the industry is. Um, but in addition to like getting your broker's license and deciding to go out and take it a step further, you really have to have the capital.
Yeah.
And the capital is a tough thing to get because everyone thinks it's super cheap and it's not. I can promise you it's not. All the subscriptions you have to pay for, if you want an in-person office, which, post-pandemic is like a decision to make
Hmm.
if you want to be in-person or online, because you don't really need to. But if you're trying to establish a culture and really establish like a foothold in the market, you need some place to take clients if they need to like drop something off. There's an aspect of legitimacy towards that.
Yeah.
And I would go back to dive deeper into it through like all the connections I made going into my senior year of college. I had with other reasons involved, which we'll probably get into, I had the ability to, make a lot of money that year, which I was then able to use to fund to open up the company with my business partner, Elijah. So,
Yeah.
he put up half, I put up half, and that allowed me to go out on my own. And I would say, I'm not in that position without a variety of people, Dave Monheit being one of them, my dad, my brother, Elijah, list goes on. There's plenty of people I'm going to forget. And I'd say that's why I took it a step further, because it was like, okay, shit, like I'm young.
Yeah.
What, like worst thing that happens is, all right, I move out of my apartment and I move out of my condo and I go back and live with my mom.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I was saying to myself. And mainly having the capital to do it was probably a bigger thing. And knowing I was in the position in that, a lot of people don't get in that position. So why not take it?
Yeah, exactly. You're already so young, starting so ahead of the ball that, yeah, it's not like you're going to, even if you go back to zero, you're right along there with everybody else, if not still further,
Right.
because you have that experience of doing that and the experience of going through
100%.
failure and having all that.
100%. And I would totally agree. Yeah.
When you first, so when you first started, you got your license, you jumped around a couple different brokerages. Like, how did you start? How did you start getting your name out there? How did you start building up your book of business? I know you're alluding in our conversations about leveraging the women's volleyball team to do some marketing for you. How did you
Oh
how did you start
yeah.
out putting your name out there?
Yeah, so what I would recommend, anyone in the industry, anyone, any business acumen or even in life, you have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started as a college kid, and for the first year, I started in the pandemic, which I would say renting an apartment during the pandemic was impossible,
Yeah.
right? No one would let you in because they're like, you might have COVID, or they were like, you need to wear. We're all wearing masks, and not even making political, but like we're all wearing masks,
Yeah.
which whole different thing. But for like the first year, the masks actually worked to my favor because no one could tell that I was baby faced with the ears.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't tell that I was just this little. Yeah, I was tall, but like I looked like I could be in like the eighth grade.
Yeah. That's.
And so like I distinctly remember being on. I was at 204 Beacon Street, and I know the client too. She still lives there. She was a great client, and she brought her friends with her. And I was like, guys, for example, I'm 19. Like this is. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. They were like, you're 19? I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh my gosh, he is 19. He's like, you could be my little brother. So getting my name out there, you had to start somewhere. But I would say there's totally an aspect of you have to fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
And, going on my first showings, like, so my first broker was Elijah, who's now currently my business partner.
Okay.
But he would always say, like, throw me in the fire, right? Or, throw me in the water, see if I can sink or swim. And if, like, he was always there for me. If I was going to drown, hypothetically speaking, he would pull me out and make sure I was okay. But I learned a lot just by doing that. Like driving up to Chelsea to show a vacant two-bed. Like, no one wants to do that. But then eventually I really did hit my stride and developed I started to do a couple of deals, really get a feel for it. And then once I'd say after I left Elijah the first time, which was sad and really tough to do because I really did like Elijah, and there were extenuating circumstances that just didn't really let us continue to do business together.
Yeah.
That's when I bopped around. I ended up at Keller Williams. Fuck Keller Williams, they suck. Got fired from them, and ended up at Encore, and that's where I really started to piece things together. Really tried to, for a variety of reasons, developed a really good nucleus of clients. Because when we do sales and we do rentals.
Yeah.
Primarily, Elijah handles a lot of the commercial aspects, but going into it, it was like, okay, yeah, I do a deal, but like the follow up, the writing them a handwritten card. I'm not sending you an email, writing them a card, giving them a gift card.
Yeah.
I don't want to give away my trade secrets, but we really try and make everyone feel like we're their best friend.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people want to do deals with people they like. Mm-hmm. People want to work with their friends, and if I can accomplish that, I absolutely will. Learning, but building up, really leveraging the student to student relationship was important for me because I was young. I would say one of the first deals I ever did when I was at Encore Realty was 19 Parker Hill Ave, number 3. And this is one that is, it's a story. Well, it's definitely a story, but it's like December of maybe 2021. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my dorm with my roommate, Larry, who's a great dude. And I had posted a random ad for a 6-bedroom in Mission Hill, which is right near Northeastern's campus. And I had no idea who the landlord was. I had no idea about this guy I don't want to shout out his government name, but it was this random guy with this long ass name.
Okay.
And I was like, sure. I was like, I'll post the 6-bed, what up, whatever. And then it was up for maybe a week, and I was like, I'm not getting any hits on this, man. I was like, let me just take it down, whatever. But it's something in me said, you know what, let's leave it up. And the next day I got a lead for it. And I was like, you want to tour? I was like, this is for September. I had no idea how the market worked.
Yeah.
Because what I know now is Northeastern students often look in November, December, and January for next September.
Okay.
That's how far in advance they look.
Damn.
And so my client was right on time, but I was like, aren't you a little early? What's going on? And he was like, yeah, no, well, let's do Saturday. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, shit, like, how do I tour this apartment? Like, what do I do? Like, total idiot. So I call up this, he's a great friend now. His name's Bill. And I call him up and he will tell you to this day, I'm like, hello, sir. Like, can I show your 6-bed? And he'll tell you, he goes, I heard this little fuck on the phone. And I was like, if I don't go up and show this apartment for this kid, it's not gonna close. And at the end of the day, he was a real estate agent once too, so he's got to know he's got to rent his own apartment, So he just showed up. He showed me how to do it. Great guy, very charismatic, and the group ends up taking the apartment, but there's other groups applying.
Mm-hmm.
So and Bill is like on me, telling me, oh, someone's gonna beat your group, someone's gonna get the apartment before you, and this is all within a 24-hour time frame too.
Oh, jeez.
So he's pressuring me, so I'm pressuring my clients. And one thing that I've sort of taken with me through like my background in athletics is don't really run away from a challenge, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I very easily could have just, put my tail between my legs and been like, oh, okay, like, guess we're not going to get this apartment, guys. Oops.
Yeah.
But instead I was like, no, I was like, screw that guy. Like, I want this apartment. Like, let's go. So that's where I was. It was 7:00 on a Saturday night, and I was getting dressed up for a call it like a frat party at my school. So I was in a Santa Claus onesie, and then my the group's like, yeah, we're fully applied. So I'm like, okay, shoot, like, what do I do? Again, this is maybe like my second or third deal at the time. So I'm in the onesie. I grab the check. I'm like, Bill, I got your money. Like, where do you want me? He was like, oh, I'm at Atlantic Fish on Boylston. And I was like, I've never been here, but like, let's do it. Shoot into Boston, downtown on Boylston. And I brought him the deal there. And he was like, the words he gave me there were really encouraging, especially to a kid who was considering leaving the business. It was, you're a hustler. Like, I love this. Like, you need to rent all my stuff. And that was probably one of the first or second relationship I've made in the industry. Mm-hmm. And there was a period there where I didn't, anytime I showed his stuff, and I was showing other stuff too, of course, but I'd be like, Bill, you got to come with me. Bill, you got to come with me. Because he closes. He has 20 years experience as an agent.
Yeah.
So he knows what to do. And he's taught me a lot. We have a great relationship. I'm going to his wedding. I've been to his kid's baptism. We're close friends now.
Yeah.
But I'll always be like young grasshopper to him. So that's, Bill was clutch, and I've done a million other deals with him since then.
Dude, that's awesome. And that just shows sometimes all you need is just that one moment to kind of have things click and make you feel, hey, I'm legit in this business. Hey, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I do have experience, and I have expertise, and I have knowledge, and yeah, I might be 19, 20 years old. But I can do this. I mean, who else is going to do that? Who else is going to go at 10:00 in a Santa Claus onesie and go close this deal,
Well, what's funny is right after Bill learned that I was in the industry and I was a hustler and whatnot, he very, very, very quickly pinned me up against this other kid, who I won't say his name, but he worked at like a different company, and it was always, so-and-so showing my stuff, and I'd be like, God damn it, like I want to rent this stuff, like,
Yeah.
And that kid himself, he's kind of gone. So we were always like trying to like match each other. So there was, again, more competitive spirit in the industry, which I'd say I thrive on tremendously. Mm-hmm. But now that kid, like, his daddy bought him a house. Yeah. He calls himself an investor, but his daddy bought him a couple of properties, and he calls himself an investor. But nepotism will get you far. I know, it's all good. We took different paths at the end.
Yeah, you don't seem salty about that at all.
No, not at all. No, fuck him.
Shake it off, Sal. That's what you do, man. No, no, dude, that's awesome. And I had a guest on, my friend Jimmy Chatfield a few episodes ago. He was on the first one, and we were talking about how when you're young, especially, that's the time to kind of really reach in and go all out and look for people like Bill, because when you're young and you're just beginning and you have the baby face, they want to help you. Older people in the industry who have experience, they have expertise, they want to help you out. And you're not their competition, but once you start getting some momentum, once you start getting older, I'm sure you probably experience it more now, is people aren't so likely to help you out. It's like, hey, you're an adult,
Yeah,
you're my
exactly. Yeah, you
competition.
sort of like, right. You lose you lose like in some ways, like you lose the baby face
Yeah.
in a business acumen. You lose the innocence, the inexperience, because now you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now you're held to clearly a higher threshold of standards.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
But there's more. There's a ton of other people like Bill that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people who I've been fortunate enough to meet. Some of them, yeah, might just be brokers. Some of them just might be owners. Some of them might be a mix and jumble of the sorts. But yeah, like there's tons of people who are in my phone now who are big dick in a locker room type of people.
Yeah.
And they're it's great to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I always, there's one guy I sneak up on his roof decks all the time. Maybe get into some trouble and whatnot, but it's just having on any day I can get into half the buildings in Boston and just go and enjoy a view if I want to.
Yeah.
If I really wanted to, which is cool. Yeah.
And that aspect about what you were talking about with, people who are potential clients want to do business with people that they view as friends, right? So if you have that kind of demeanor, but also on the other end is building those internal industry relationships, that also is, you're selling yourself at the end of the day, and people want to do business within their circle. So if they have a listing and, they're more likely to call up Sal to get it done because they like Sal over some other random, broker or agent.
100%. 100%. And I would say something that I'm really proud of is the referral network that I set up for myself, because knowing, you can set as many goals as you want, and, obviously set high goals because hopefully you hit them. But if you don't, like, watch, see how far you came in the meantime. But when I was at like nothing and had, no client network and, no leads and, was just sitting in the office 7 days a week, not going on in showings, had no buyer clients, no renting clients. It's like, I want a great referral basis.
Yeah.
How do I set this up? Obviously, start with doing a good job and then following up and then treating them with care. And then also, like I mentioned, the cards and the gift cards and all that stuff too. But now I'm at the point where, in theory, I don't even need to like post an ad or, go and get people. Like they'll just come to me.
Yeah.
Granted, I probably won't make as much money, so I still do a mix of the both. But I'm very proud of that. And there's, at this point, I think I have, having only bet it, and like you have to understand, like there's cycles to each lease. So only, having done this for maybe 6 years at this point, I have, a referral link that's like 3 chains long, which meant they rented with me in 2022. They sent me someone in 2023, sent me someone in 2024, and so on and so forth. Or they, then they just keep bringing me business.
Yeah.
Which is the dream, honestly.
Yeah. That is super nice. And I'm sure that's helped you, get to the point where you can go and start off on your own business and you already have those clients that are loyal to you and want to do business with you. We're talking a lot about, going through the business, learning, making mistakes. What's the biggest mistake you think you've made in real estate so far?
One like particularly comes to mind, and I know it's going to like follow me for a while. And, my old broker knows all about it. He had my back in this, like, he talked about loyalty. So he's been there for it. There was this girl I had seen like one time. This was like junior year, and she was bad, so I never saw her again. But she was like, I want to get into real estate. And so I helped her, and she was very like obsessive about it. Like she would always ask for help, and like I was fine to do that. And she went to Northeastern and she kept saying like, oh, I'm going to make so much money off Northeastern kids, like blah, blah, blah. And I, in an effort to try and like educate her about how the market moves and how truly competitive that market is, I might have misspoke, but what I was really trying to articulate was it's kind of like a stampede in a concert, like when the gates open, like people are going to rush in, like that's how competitive it is. But, being young and making a mistake, I told her that the market is so competitive that and hypothetically, like the market is this competitive that if I saw you on a showing, I'd push you down a flight of stairs. And that, like, I own up to it. Like, that's what I said. But again, I did not threaten her at all. I said, like, this is how competitive the market is. And, maybe like 4 months later, I'm in the car with my girlfriend at the time and my broker calls me. He's like, what did you do? And I was like, Nothing. Like, what? He goes, who'd you push down a flight of stairs? I was like, fucking nobody. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, am I on speakerphone? And I was like, yeah. He goes, pull over, answer the call. And she had finally joined up with a broker, and they were an enemy of us, but we had like someone on the inside over there. They're like, yeah, like they want to like have him arrested.
Oh my God.
Which, to be fair, like if you actually took the whole text chain, it would have been dismissed right away. Not a problem. But based off the very, very small like screenshot that they sent, it's like, yeah, go lock this kid up. But we squashed that. That was nice and easy. That's one.
Explain to me a little bit about what it's like. I mean, Sal, you're 24 or you're 23 still, or?
Yeah, I'm 24 now. Yeah.
24. You are a business owner alongside Elijah, Albert Taylor Realty. First of all, I want to know who Albert Taylor is.
Yeah, sure. I get that question a lot. We actually have a TikTok video coming out about it like sometime in March, so next month technically. So Elijah obviously ran his own company beforehand, so he was able to name his company whatever he wanted. When I said, hey man, like, he was between jobs and I was about to graduate, so I was like, let's just do it now. Like, there's going to be no better time. And he gave me he was nice enough and gracious enough to give me like the naming rights, which was, meant a lot to me because he didn't have to do that. It could have been, Arnold Bruno, it would have been no different.
Yeah.
Albert Taylor, it's both of my grandmother's maiden names.
Ah.
So my one was Giselle Albert and one was Joan Taylor. And both of them I lost due to like Alzheimer's and dementia, which, I've seen that disease in so many different aspects. It's, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And, I love both of obviously I love both my grandmothers, but they both had a huge part in my life. Picking me up from school, like always being there for me. And I was like, all right, like I one aspect I wanted a name that was different. I didn't want, ABC Realty or, whatever properties or a basic name.
Yeah.
And frankly, I wanted it to have like a legitimate aspect to it, kind of like a law firm, right? Like Harvey Specter, or it's not Harvey Specter, Pearson Specter or whatever.
Yeah,
I watched Suits 2 years prior before I named it, but there was an aspect of that too. But it was definitely a lot of paying homage to my family, because at the end of the day, like we're a small boutique brokerage and we try and treat every client like family at the end of the day.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. It's very,
Thank you.
and we'll get into this a little bit later on, but family seems very important to you. Just from me knowing you and our recent conversations, I can tell that that's important. So that's a great name. And so what's it like to be, honestly, like just one of the owners of this business at such a young age? What does that do for you mentally? What does that do for you kind of on a daily basis? What's the difference, and what does it feel like, being so young and having this business?
Yeah. I'd say I'm extremely inexperienced. Don't know what I'm doing. And I have no problem saying that, because I don't think I do.
Yeah.
Compared to like the next guy. I knew enough to get me going, but I always say the day we opened our doors as a company, which was, I believe, the first week of May in 2024, that same week, I graduated college and I moved into my apartment. So within 7 days of each other, I opened a company, moved into my first apartment, and graduated college.
A lot of change at once.
That's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And we had our first agent join up with us that week, so it was a lot to do. Figuring out the accounting sucked. Because with real estate, with escrow accounts, there's a ton of ins and outs, because you are like the de facto middleman. So anytime your client has money, they send it to you, and then you send it to the landlord. So getting on that was really tricky, and without Elijah, I'd be in a world of hurt because my accounting sucks. Even I tell the story all the time. I was in college, so my sophomore and junior year, that's when we took accounting at LaSalle. Bullshit class, really not great. And at the time I was super busy with real estate. So I'm like I'm never going to need this. Like, so I went on Yahoo Answers, Shag, like I didn't do a lick of accounting.
Yeah.
So I cheated in accounting to get ahead in real estate.
Yeah.
But what I didn't know is like 2 steps down the real estate marker was owning a brokerage and having to do the accounting. So that is really rough. The accounting aspect sucks. Marketing, we're still figuring out how to do properly. It's an ever-changing industry in Boston. Boston's such a unique real estate market, and every year there's something new that you have to really understand or hurdle you have to get over.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, like, year one, it was just getting, properties up on Zillow and apartments.com. And this year it's dealing with new laws and, new governance and whatnot.
Yeah.
Leading marketing, like we're obviously in the TikTok and Instagram field now, which, some good, some bad. But last year around this time, we dumped like probably 30 grand into SEO and never saw it again. Like with SEO, like you have to try.
Yeah.
But we got like nothing out of it. So we were like, all right, well, there's $30,000. Like, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say we're learning, but it's inspiring. It's fun. I set my own schedule like any other real estate agent, but now I have to try and lead a company. And being a leader is something that I've always tried to be in life, but in different aspects. I feel like there's many different, definitions of leadership. I have my own personal definition, but you can be a leader in a multitude of different ways, be it vocally, be it by, lead by example or so on and so forth. And in some cases, you can only lead those who want you. A leader needs followers, but at the same time, like if a horse, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink type of thing. So
yeah.
I can only help someone so much until they go out and like be like, oh, okay, like it's January, I should probably post an ad near Northeastern, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only tell you that so many times until you do it, I guess. There's a lot. It's very dynamic. It's a lot. Elijah makes my life a lot easier. I don't know. I don't think I could do this without him.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think I could do this without a lot of people. Even through the connections I made in the industry, they're all like, I can always call them up and just bounce an idea off of them. And since some of the new laws that were passed, some of my relationships have only grown stronger,
mm-hmm.
which I appreciate.
Yeah, that's good. And I always think about the ultimate learning experience for running a business, doing any job is just doing it. I mean, you're only going to learn as you start doing it, right? So it's the irony of what you were saying, not being interested in the accounting class. But honestly, here you are now. Did that accounting class really matter? Because now you actually have to do it. You're going to have to figure it out either way.
In no way did it. It didn't matter at all. I sat in the back of the class and I made a lot of money in that class, but I probably cost myself a couple bands in the end. I would also say too, like, I remember, because when you're just an agent, like when I was an agent at Encore Realty, not the casino, yeah. I would I was there, and I remember the month that I was due to depart, and my old broker was super cool about it. I was starting to realize like why his life was so stressful, mm-hmm. and how under control he had everything. And so when I left, I have no problem doing this. I cried like a little bitch, like they have like a weekly meeting on Wednesdays, and it was, it was like my day to leave. And, he was cool enough. He gave me the floor. He was like, Anthony, say what you got to say. And I told him, I was like, guys, like, you need to realize how much this, Dave does for you all. Yeah. Like, there's so much expenses on the back end that you guys don't even see. This space alone probably costs 20 grand a month just to rent, never mind the additional expenses that are quite high. Mm-hmm. And, as I walked out, and I knew I was going to cry. And I rarely, there's a very few amount of people who've seen me cry. And I honestly, I take pride in that. So I literally went into Dave's arms and I cried, and I was like, I'm not leaving until I can walk out of the store with a smile on my face, because you've done so much for me, and I don't want this to be viewed as a negative experience. And I go back there all the time. I'm going out with them tonight. Like we're, Encore and we're still great friends.
Well, that's good, man. That's an important part of, being true to yourself and having that reflect on as far as loyalty and, not burning any bridges, and mm-hmm. You might go separate ways, but that's a great lesson. And, you sound like you're happy that you made those choices and sure. left with dignity and things like that. You were mentioning about the complexities of the Boston real estate market. Did you know you were going to start going right into rentals, or was that kind of like a step up process, or how did you get into the rental mm-hmm. market?
Yeah. So the rental market in Boston, it's just all around you. It's hard not to fall into it. Mm-hmm. as a young, like, budding agent, it is easier to do.
Mm-hmm.
The approach that I've always liked to, I really try to take a grassroots approach with it, especially when I was starting. So it was, all right, let me start in rentals and work my way into sales. Because, I mean, I could do a sale, but, there's different approaches that you can take in the industry. The border, like the typical Keller Williams model is walk in the door, hey, I want to be in sales. All right, cool, we'll hire you. Call everyone on your phone and tell them you're a real estate agent.
Yeah.
I find that to be very disingenuous, very bland, very just, anyone can do that. There's nothing special about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, next thing I'm calling up ex-girlfriends being like, hey, like, can I sell your house? It's just super awkward. So the more grassroots approach that I've always...
Real quick, especially being so young, that's a tough thing because 80% of your contacts are like, dude, I don't own a house. I'm nowhere near owning a house.
Dude, like I'm nowhere near that. Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And there's also the aspect of it too where I've always found that naturally people associate age with experience because the longer you live, the more you've experienced.
Yeah.
And selling your house with a kid, they're not going to think he knows very much. Even if I do, they're going to think I'm a total novice, and that's totally fine. I get that. So, I can play the blame game on anything, but I feel like that's been a large aspect of it, in the past few years.
Mm-hmm.
But I've taken the approach where, I rent to students, I'll rent to anybody. But the ideal clients where I literally like to focus on are, young couples, right, who are renting their first apartment together.
Mm.
Now, there's a ton of variables after that. But, all right, they live there a couple years. Maybe if I find them a new place, eventually they're going to buy.
Yeah.
Eventually it's going to happen. And as long as I'm there for that, I've now gone full circle with these clients. They're never going to rent with anyone else but me.
Yeah.
Or, they're never going to do any sort of real estate transaction without me.
No.
And that's the approach that I love to see it. And it's really coming into fruition now. So I laid those bricks when I was in college, and now they're really starting to, show me something in return.
Does it help, you think, in business just having more of a niche to be able to kind of lock in on that individual instead of I'm trying to do everything. I'm trying to do, residential sales. I'm trying to do rentals. I'm trying to do commercial. Does it make it easier and probably further progress your business if you start in on one niche?
Sure. Yeah. Like you mentioned commercial. So commercial real estate itself is probably the hardest to get into.
Yeah.
We haven't really tapped into it all that much, though I would say like they make the most money by far and away.
Oh yeah.
But they're working 24/7. They actually never get a day off.
Mm-hmm.
And like we say we work 24/7, but at the end of the day, they always have to be talking about that they're in commercial. And if you know someone or this and that, they can never really turn it off.
Yeah.
And what, I've had the privilege of talking with some of the bigger real estate, commercial brokers in Boston, some of the heads of those companies. And what they say is residential rentals, they're like crack because they're cheap, they're quick, and, you make a decent amount of money off of them, which is all true.
Yeah.
But at some point you got to get off the crack, got to put the pipe down and maybe try and actually, not make something of yourself, but grow out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess you could say I'm still in the pipe right now, but getting into sales, you can try and do both. There are definitely some other agents in the city who are like, oh, I only do sales.
Yeah.
Like, all right, Betsy, like relax. Like, I know how much you build. I know how much I build. Like, I did $200,000 off rentals. You did 30,000 on a sale. Like, we're not the same.
Yeah.
Don't look at me and don't think just because you dress better than me and drive an Aston Martin doesn't mean that you're better than me.
Yeah.
Like, that's daddy's money. Stop lying.
Yeah, Betsy.
But no, sales is everyone wants to be in sales. Like,
Yeah.
duh. But it's great to start in the rental market to really understand what you're doing and understand, if someone who wants to buy as a first-time home buyer an investment property, a commercial building, or so on and so forth, those are all different types of sales that are viewed totally differently. A basic residential sale, whether it be like a condo in the city or, a single family out in Newton or, Watertown or wherever, they're not looking for an ROI. They're not looking at cash flow. They're not looking for, net operating income or so on and so forth. They're just looking to be like, all right, is there a condo fee? No. Okay. What are the taxes? Okay. Is this the mortgage? Is this appropriate for me to pay every month?
Yeah.
Because your mortgage is basically, when you look at renting versus owning, paying your mortgage is the same thing as paying your rent.
Yeah.
Except when you're paying your mortgage, you're building equity, which, I feel like the average person knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a typical 3-family investment property, yeah, you could be a first-time home buyer, but typically especially in Boston, there's going to be sharks, investor sharks who are going to try and eat that up, and they want to know if it's a good deal and how much they're going to get back, what's the cap rate, and so on and so forth. So building all that knowledge. Like I wouldn't have that knowledge if I didn't start out in the rental field. I
Yeah.
do now because of where I am, but I would never have been able to understand what those metrics were if I didn't start where I did.
Yeah. And I mean, it's such a tough market in the housing market these days, especially for younger people. I
Oh,
work,
it sucks.
I work in the back end. So I do consulting for banks, Sal. And so we look
Yeah.
at their loan portfolio, and a lot of it's commercial stuff, but a lot of the time too, it's, commercial loan, but it's investors buying family properties. And what they do is they
Right.
go in with cash, they buy the property, take it away from probably two or three, first time home buyers, young families, young couples that are looking
Right.
to have an opportunity, but the owner takes the cash purchase, and then they go back to the bank and they say, can we be reimbursed for the funds for this cash purchase? And we're going to actually mortgage it out. So
Hmm.
it's such an unfair. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure the rentals are
Definitely.
booming.
Definitely, but even across the board, no matter if it's Massachusetts or Nashville, like at one point I was going to move to Nashville because at one
Mm,
point, you know, but the reason Boston's one of the top three markets in the country is because we have so many students, but there's high demand, low supply. So it doesn't take an econ major to figure out like, okay, like prices are going to be high. That you're always going to have something to do. And at one point, Nashville, around like 2023 and 2024, Nashville was being built. They were building a ton of housing. There was a lot of demand.
oh yeah.
But then what ended up happening is they overbuilt.
Hmm.
So they messed with the supply and demand. So now there's no one cares. Like, Nashville could have been top five, and now they're just, another country or another state rather that, or not even state,
City,
city
yeah.
that has just a lot of housing.
Yeah.
So you and I, we were almost neighbors. Where I'll tell you that
Well, I mean,
could have been roommates.
if you wanted to be neighbors, you're right along what you're saying is, I mean, there's so many buildings that are finishing up because the construction takes, a year or two. So they're so behind on this demand that's slowing down. Now we got all these apartment complexes, like you were saying, they're offering 2 to 3 months free rent, waived
Oh
application
yeah,
fees. They're just
just
trying
get
to
them
get
in, just
people
get in
in.
here.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Just get to they don't care. They just want to start cash flowing
yeah,
and
exactly.
making pay it off. Yeah.
Yeah. But is that part, like, Boston is so old that they can't build anything new?
Yeah, I mean, like Lord knows they're trying. They're
Yeah.
absolutely trying, and they build where they can, but a lot of it's gentrifying other areas or pushing people out and seeing where they can get new developments. And it's so I would say that half of people want to implement rent control in Boston,
Yeah.
and I feel like if you look at rent control, it's historically not worked. You look at San Francisco, New York, Australia, all crazy real estate markets that implemented rent control and it backfired tremendously.
Hmm.
Tremendously. It's the worst thing you can do. What Boston actually needs to do is they need to free up their zoning restrictions, which they're doing. They're offering grants now for old commercial buildings and turning them into residential apartments, which that's gonna, that's the perfect thing to do. Not
Yeah.
not cap what a landlord can get, because when you decide to cap how much a landlord can go up, right? And Boston just went up 13% in taxes. If you implement rent control, like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's totally ridiculous. They went up 13% in taxes for residential real estate taxes, and how is a landlord supposed to get that back? At a
Hmm.
certain point, they're just going to sell it off, and they're going to stop maintaining the building,
Yeah.
which is a huge problem because now you're going to have this massive high rise that they just don't want to take care of because
Yeah.
they know at the end of the day they can only get a certain threshold for rent. So
Yeah.
why try and improve it? You know?
Yeah. No, and then that's when you see mass vacancy. That's when you see stress on banks because it's not their money. I mean, the people that are building these buildings, it's not their money. It's all the bank's money.
Right.
So I mean, if they're not making money, they'll walk away. They'll say, "Hey, we'll go bankrupt," and that's it. What are some things maybe a young professional out of college, they're looking for an apartment. What are some things that they should be keeping in mind, they should be looking out for when they're trying to find a place to live?
Sure. I would recommend that they work with someone who like knows their area, the area where they want to live, and that's
Yeah.
going to give you access to like off-market deals, better prices, and someone who really has developed an acumen for that area. Like we do a lot with college kids, so Northeastern, BC, BU, and there's a million other schools in Boston. But if you're fresh out of college, you're going to try and you're going to need to find a place either for June 1st or July 1st or August 1st, which there's not a lot of that because typically we see Boston as a student run city, which means most tenants move in September 1st because all the leases are on that cycle. So I'd say developing, can you move in September 1st? You might get better options, but at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
the city's like shut down that day. It's kind of chaotic. And then I would say work with someone who knows the area. I'm not gonna, if someone's referred to me and they're like, hey, I want to live in Medford, which is a couple miles out of the city, I'd say, yeah, I can definitely help you. We'd love to help you. But as a referral client, I want to treat you as best as I can. And I might say, hey, like, you might be better off like working with someone in Medford, basically.
Yeah. 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 That is smart. And that's funny because I always think, I'm like, oh, when's the off cycle, that I would try to want to do everything I can to not have to deal with September 1st. But you're right. That's going to be the most options available. So,
Right. And
that might be your,
typically people who want to live or who want to like, oh, they'll be like, oh, we'll rent something after 9/1. That's the worst thing you can do. Because historically what happens is, I've been showing September 1st apartments since October, if you can believe it.
yeah.
Like that early. So
Yeah.
anything that is left, post 9/1, think about how many people have toured that and why they didn't go with it. It's probably been toured 1,000 times and no one wants to rent it. So you're going to get like, it's bottom of the barrel, nothing left, like a Feinberg shack, one bed on Boylston Street with mice. And, but heat and hot water is included though. So, it's a good deal.
That's funny. Let's talk a little bit about kind of you and how you go about, your finances as far as your business and also personally. I mean, you were telling me a story a couple days ago how you bought your whole family Canada Goose jackets.
Yeah.
Right. And, when I heard that, I wasn't thinking that as like you were trying to flex or as a sign of hubris at all. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounded like you were grateful to be able to have the opportunities to give back to your family. And, you're talking about the lineage with your grandmothers and how much they meant to you. So the rest of your family does sound like they're very important to you.
Yeah, no, 100%. They definitely matter a lot to me. I'd say not just like my family, so which is my dad, my mom, my brother, but like the extended family as well. They all matter a great deal to me. Buying the jackets for my immediate family was something I did. I did it in college, and it was definitely I had something cool I can say and whatnot. But it was less about the brand and about the money. It was more like I know throughout that year, that time frame, they had all been making a lot of sacrifices for me specifically. My brother was commuting to LaSalle at the time. He'd bring my laundry back to my mom, which was nice. There was my mom would bring me a meal because we only lived 45 minutes away. It was very doable, and I wanted to be able to say that I could keep my family warm, and that my family would never be cold again. It was like that aspect really resonated with me, and I did my research. I didn't just buy them on a spur of the moment type of thing. I really took the time to make it happen. In terms of like personal finances, I'd say, I don't know. I live in Chestnut Hill. I feel like I've made something of myself, and you could say coming out of high school, not a lot of. I don't want to say that I was counted out, but there was definitely some stuff that went on towards the end of my high school life where it was like, all right, this kid's a fuck up. Like, don't really want, and like that was the case. And I took that and I was like, it's fine, start over, and sort of rebuild what I can. I would say right now though, like I'm definitely not in the position to flex on anyone. I feel like we're heading into a recession. So financially, like things are definitely tight. I would say I'm in no position like I was in college. And the funny thing was in college too, is when I was, I was working in real estate. Obviously I was working as a real estate agent and I was doing really well. And what was funny is, I was clearly the youngest person at the office, but there was people in the office, grown ass men, grown ass moms, fathers, 40, 50 years old. And they're working hard because they got to pay for, tuition or they got to pay for their mortgage. And then here's fucking Sal, right? Billing 50 grand a month and he's spending it on fucking strippers and gummy bears. Like, look at this kid. And it was just epic, but I had such a fun time doing it. I was just so frugal. I'm not frugal, like frivolous, like all over the place with my money. which was terrible. But it was seriously, it was strip clubs and gummy bears and, dinners and, just a good time, honestly. Do I look
Yeah.
back on that and think, damn, I would have liked that money now? Like, probably could have kept me afloat. Yeah, but I feel like the times and the memories I got from those times, I feel like are pretty valuable. As for the personal finances, as for the finances of the business, rather,
Hmm.
we're real estate brokers. There's not much more to it than that. We got
Yeah.
a lot of ins, got a lot of outs, pay people on time. Our checks never bounce, which I'm damn proud of. We've never had a check bounce, but our escrow account
Hmm.
has hundreds of thousands of dollars in it, so it's pretty
Yeah.
secure. Yeah.
What are you thinking when you think of like long-term financial plans? Are you thinking about those, or is it like I'm working on this business, like this is my long-term financial plan?
Um, I would say I definitely had a plan, but in some cases it can be hard to stick to a plan. I was looking at buying a house within the past year. I love the area I live in right now, but I live in a condo. And to buy a
Hmm.
house, it's a little bit different because I can't, to buy a house in Chestnut Hill is $1 million minimum. Like, forget
Yeah,
about it.
big money.
$1 million
Yeah.
bare minimum. And I don't have that now, and I don't think I should at this age either. And even all right, say I do get approved for that. Well, the monthly payment's going to be $10,000. It's not doable.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was interested in buying a condo in this general area because they're about half a mil and they're pretty doable. And as far as like pulling permits and whatnot, just get someone in Friday after 12 and have someone gut the bathroom or whatever and everything's fine. Um, but that sort of went astray because I was pushing a beater of a car. I've never put much value in a car personally, but the car I was
Hmm.
driving eventually shit the bed. I've had the brakes go out on numerous cars numerous times. So my Escalade, the brakes
Oh
went out on
boy.
that twice, and then my CRV recently, like within the last year, the brakes went out. And once that happens to you, like once, like you're just like, nope, done. Like forget about it. So
Yeah.
my CRV, I'm not gonna. Once the brakes go out once, it's like tearing an ACL. It's just gonna happen again, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So I was like, I'll drive this for the next 30 days at most. Then I need to figure it out. So I kind of, and what I would say is definitely not a smart investment decision. I took the money I was going to use to buy a house and bought a car. Which is, any sort of financial advisor is going to tell you not to do that. And I agree because I could have bought an appreciating asset and I bought a depreciating asset instead. Like 101 not to do that. But
Yeah.
how else was I going to get around?
Oh
I
yeah.
literally need my job for business. It's not like I show apartments in one area. We show apartments all over Boston. So
Hmm.
if I need to get to, I can't take the bus to Northeastern, then to the North End, then to Cambridge. That's not possible. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I needed a car. I did
Yeah.
buy a relatively newer car. I didn't buy a new car. I bought a used car, which doesn't really make it all that better, but I felt like it was a fair trade at the end of the day.
Is that the Tesla that I saw in the
Yeah.
socials post?
That is the Tesla, yeah. I will say though, fuck Eco Auto and Tewksbury. They fucking suck. I'll tell you what. As a salesperson who lives off referrals, Will, this is my moment. Stop. As a salesperson who works on referrals, I treat referrals better than Christ himself. And the treatment I got at Eco Auto and Tewksbury was the fucking worst thing I've ever seen in my life. Immediately pawned off, right? Upcharged. They tried to give me $250 for my CRV. It was a piece of shit. I understand that, but just on the going rate of scrap alone, and scrap is down, it's at least worth five. So don't fucking tell me it's worth 250 fucking dollars. Then they take 30 days to give me my new car. What the fuck are you doing for 30 days? You go and pick it up, it ain't cleaned. There's dog hair everywhere in the car, like slop. It's like you didn't even try. All the things I heard weren't it. I was like, what the fuck is happening here? So yeah, they suck. Don't never. If you, I'm not. I'm sure most of your audience is based out of Nashville, but in case they're looking to buy a used Tesla in the state of Massachusetts, Eco Auto is not the answer. Fucking suck.
Providing so much insight, Sal. Oh my god.
Anyways,
Well, you know what? Look, it takes a salesperson to know a good salesperson, and
I
obviously,
guess
if you're
I guess
not
that's a
pleased,
lesson to know there. Yeah, but yeah. So I did buy
you
it. Getting
know,
back to your point, I did buy the Tesla. I didn't buy it for any of the reasons that half your viewers are going to think. I didn't buy it. So I bought it after the tax credit was finished. So like that was dumb as well. I could have gotten $7,000 off. Um, didn't buy it for the tax credit. Didn't buy it because I was pro or against Elon. Elon had nothing to do with it. I didn't buy it for the
Yeah.
environment or nothing. I bought it because it drives me. It drives
Yeah.
itself. And
Hmm.
someone who's been like, I'm petrified of driving because I've been in too many accidents. And if the
Hmm.
car can drive me, even for a second, that's a relief for me. And the safety features on it are
Yeah.
great as well. So it was really just about safety, which I feel like even if you're anti Elon, you can't knock someone for trying to be in a safe car at the end of the day.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's funny, dude. Let's. I want to go and talk about some mentorship in your life and some coaching. I mean, you were a former athlete,
Hmm.
basketball player, baseball player. Me and you played on the same baseball team in high
We
school.
did. I started varsity sophomore
Uh,
year.
you did.
I
You
did.
did. I remember. I remember you got a opening day. You got to rip up the
No,
middle,
did
man.
I don't know if I did.
Yeah.
I don't know
Against
about
Portsmouth
that.
Abbey.
I don't know about
Yeah.
that. I'll
No,
tell you,
I remember that clearly.
the one memory I really do have of being, like, I mean, look, I played baseball for the vibes. I wasn't really a good baseball player. Like, I'm not looking for
Yeah.
credit there, but I remember like later on that season, yeah, because Ray was still there. We're playing, and I hadn't seen the varsity field in like half. I did not care. And we're in like a
Hmm.
competitive game. It's at home. It might have been against Thayer, but I'm not entirely sure. And I get called on to pinch it, and I'm like, whose fucking bright idea is this? I'm like, I'm like, I was fucking eating a hamburger 2 innings ago. Like, what? And so I'm like, all right, shit, like, grab a bat, like, all right, like, get warmed up, whatever. I look unathletic. Like, I look like I don't belong. And I step in the plate, and it's like, must have been like bottom six, maybe bottom five. And we had men on. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And so I go up to the catcher. I'm like, hey, buddy, like, this might get fucking bad. I go, just tell me. I go, man, I go, brother to brother, just tell me where it's going. And he was actually like honest. He was like, all right, like first one's curve. And I was like, all right, sweet, like appreciate that, like thanks. And it was a curve. He's like, next one fastball high. And I fucking lined it up the middle and got a single. And then they pinch ran for me. But I was so happy because he didn't need it. I was not gonna hit that ball. I was gonna take all three pitches and walk back to the dugout. Like the bat wasn't gonna leave my shoulders. And you were on that
I
team.
might have been.
That's with Kaler. That's with
Yeah.
Ruggiero. That's with like all those. I'd say the best we were.
Yeah. I might have been pitching that day too. So I probably appreciated that more than you might have. But going back to about, you're no stranger to coaching and
Sure.
having some kind of mentorship. What is mentorship meant to you kind of in your early career and as far as starting this business and having that? I know there's some notable people that have been in your life that have helped you along the way. What is that like, having that kind of mentorship?
I mean, it means the world. And to have a variety of them means a lot. Um,
Hmm.
I'm almost scared to start naming them because I fear that I'd leave some off, and that wouldn't be fair to them. But I'd say
Yeah.
coaches like from an athletic background, they all know who they are. And I was blessed enough to having traveled to Peach Jam for basketball, going into my senior year of high school, meeting some coaches there who coach. Peach Jam's it's the Nike circuit. Um, and I was there, and it was tremendous. But I met some coaches who I ended up going to train with in Florida. And the one thing, his name is Donovan, and he's probably not going to watch this, but he's a cool dude. He told me, like, in line, he was like, it's not the baskets you make, it's the hands you shake. And that ended up being one of my senior year quotes because it really resonated with
Mm.
me, and it definitely had a basketball background to it as well. But Donovan was cool. He's probably one I would want to shout out. But there's a laundry list of people. And then post high school, I mean, I played a year of college basketball that didn't really go well, and that's fine. Um, any mentor I've had in this industry I know who they are, and they all know who they are. But I'm not sure if there's anyone I'd probably point out, just because they all mean like a tremendous. It's so important to have them, for them to show you the ropes. And I've tried
Yeah.
a couple of different. I try and pay it forward in a lot of ways. Even like when I was playing basketball in high school, there was definitely juniors and seniors who helped me. So then I made it a point my sophomore year from that point on, to always find someone who I could help out and really not drag them along, but bring them along with me and make sure that they were always included. And I feel like
Yeah.
inclusion is a big part of everything, making sure that someone feels included and that they're not being blatantly left out. I tell the story,
Yeah.
my junior year in college, just living with these, like, living with five other dudes. And, something was like off in the group and they were friends with the girls downstairs. And one of the girls downstairs didn't like her. She's a bitch, whatever. And she was at the time, she was shit talking Jaron Duran because she worked security
Hmm.
for the Red Sox, which is no fucking prize, by the way. Everyone fucking works security for the Red Sox. Like, don't act like you're, whatever. And she was shit talking Jaron Duran, who is a family friend at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I looked at Denny, I gotta go, fuck you. It's like, you're not gonna, like, you're not Jaron Duran. Like, you don't know what he's going through, which we all now know a lot of what he's been
Yeah.
through.
He was
And
struggling.
I was like, and you're also like, you're talking about a friend. And she did not like that at all. And frankly, I don't give a fuck. And like the next week, she took 11 people to the Red Sox game. All of her, we were in like, I don't want to say dorm, but like, not the dorm building, but like, her six group. And then
Hmm.
five from my dorm. I was the one who didn't get brought. And I was like,
Yeah.
and I felt like just based on like in the aspect of inclusion, was I left out? Yeah, all right, cool. It's no big deal. Like, at the end of the day, like strip clubs and gummy bears, like I'm fine with that. But I was really offended that none of my roommates stuck up for me in that moment.
Yeah.
That was upsetting to me. And
Yeah.
there's more stories from that year that can go on. But getting back to your point about mentorship and whatever or so on, I would say it means the world. And finding a good mentor is vital because they'll show you the ropes. It'll make your life half as hard as it needs to be.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And I did in fact reach out to some of your buddies, and
Yeah.
I want to quote here. Greg, I said to a couple of them, I said, if there's one word or phrase that defines Sal when you think of Sal, and I mean, a couple of them said loyal. Greg said loyal and spontaneous. Jack also added loyal. Dave, Dave said he has no off switch,
It's
which
funny
I
coming from
get.
him. That's pretty funny coming from Dave.
Ray said misunderstood,
Oh yeah,
and
100%.
that he loves you. I had to add that in because he started going off about like this whole thing. I was like, damn. I was like, Ray, I just know you love your brother at the end of the day. And personally, I mean, I always think of the word authentic.
Sure.
Sal is always his authentic self in the best way possible. Do you ever think that some of the times these traits, they help you ultimately, or do you feel like they ever hurt you? Like, what do you think the trade-off is between being loyal and authentic and spontaneous in these moments?
Yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to each, and to list them out would take too long. But I feel like loyalty is a big deal. I feel like being loyal it can be portrayed in a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, like having your friends back, or
Yeah.
it might not be sticking up, but knowing like no, like I got you, and I know like you're there, and you can see loyalty and a lot of disloyalty. Like I keep referencing in college, there was a lot of people who I knew they didn't have my back, but I'm going to treat them like I have theirs, and then when they don't have mine, it's like, all right, I know who you are, I know why
Yeah.
you're here, I know you're along for the ride. And I'm sure Greg might have mentioned the Atlantic Fish time. Did he? Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't
Yeah.
you
So
tell us the viewers here?
yeah, we'll go off on a tangent. That's fine. Um, so it was after one of my busier months, and it was the best month I ever had. And I frankly, I had set a record at Encore Realty at the time. Builds went out of my mind. But to be frank, I was depressed, I was upset, and I was broke. Right? I had been still going through a breakup. I was so fucking heartbroken, and I had lost all my money on this this girl who I thought I loved and whatever and so on. That's a different story. But I
Yeah.
knew I was like January is going to be my month, and anyone who gets in my way is going to be like just fuck off. Like do not get in my way. To the point I told
Yeah.
my entire family, I said, if I do not call me. I'm busy. Every second I'm busy. Unless you need a liver transplant and you are certain that I am the match, do not contact me. And that's what it was. And so at the end of it, after 30 days of just working nonstop, being so stressed out, I achieved my goal. I did everything I wanted to do, and I said, said, let's go get fucked up. So I grabbed a bunch of kids from my grade and took them to Atlantic Fish, which is now a recurring theme because, ever since that first deal with Bill, I've become very well known at Atlantic Fish. Like all the bartenders know me. I'm treated like Bill's son. I used to be a lot better. I used to be able to, what you could do is, so Atlantic Fish and Abe and Louie's, one's a fish restaurant, obviously, and one's a steak restaurant, but they share the same kitchen. So I hate fish, but I like the bartenders. So what I was able to do is I was able to like order off menu and they'd bring it to me. It was so fucking cool. And that's what I used to do. And I brought, so we did 2 nights at Atlantic. The first night I brought maybe like 8 kids. And this is Greg's favorite night ever. I took kids who probably I would say would never otherwise have been able to go there. And we had like the night of our life. And it was awesome. Got totally bent in half, had a lot of great food and whatever. And it was a good time. But then immediately after that, there were some people who were, I would say, unintentionally left out, right? Just not through disloyalty or anything, just weren't in the room when we made the plans type of thing, who didn't get to go, who were very upset. And I was like, all right, like, screw it. I got one more in me. Let's go do another one. But I was like, guys, no food this time. I got to try and save some money, which that alone cost me about an extra $1,500 because realizing that we weren't going to eat and we were just going to be drinking, like, duh.
Yeah, ramp things up quick.
Yeah, and so you got to realize, too, Atlantic Fish it's not a college bar. It's very much a fine dining establishment in Boston. And this time I have 15 people by the bar.
Oh, my God.
And at one point, someone started a "fuck my ex" chant. And so I remember, like, I would always get treated so well at Atlantic. Like, any shot was a double shot for the price of half a shot. Like, damn near everything was comped. Everything was tremendous. And I remember looking at the bill of that night and being like, "Oh, what? Like, how is this?" I was like, "Whatever, like, sign, like, whatever." And I couldn't understand why. And then I woke up at like 3 a.m. and I was like, "Oh, it's because we were assholes." It's like, that makes all the sense in the world. So yeah, that, those nights, I know Greg holds very close to his heart, but I do too. Those were some fun college times, especially as a senior in college, and being able to, I've always tried to make sure that everyone at my table eats, both, literally and figuratively. And there were a lot of people who stood by my side who were at that dinner, who I was really happy to have them there and show my appreciation for them. I guess.
So, yeah, no, I even feel that, I mean, you reached out to our mutual friend Cam and to just share a message that you've been seeing what I've been doing and been appreciating that. And I was thinking about you, but just like, I even felt that, just like you've been one of few people. I'm not expecting people, I'm not expecting anything. I mean, I do this for whatever reasons, I choose to do, but you were somebody that reached out and just like took the time to just send a text message to just be like, "Hey, Will, I like the stuff that you're doing. This is great," and then, and it kind of works both ways. Like I wanted you to be on this. So even like just kind of being in this non-immediate sphere, I always feel that with you.
Appreciate that. Yeah. That's definitely something I try and, go about. I guess to circle back, like the loyalty aspect that you originally brought up, or being authentic. Like, yeah, there are pros and cons to each of them. Being an immature high schooler cost me a lot of opportunities, got me suspended as well. And there was definitely stuff, social media and I like shouldn't really get along. I'm impulsive, extremely impulsive. And I a lot of times do stuff without thinking and act too quickly and maybe say the wrong thing, which, I would say even to a point like podcasting is going to be hard because I might say the wrong thing. I might be honest, but it's not exactly, what needs to be said. It's not exactly the kosher answer. So I don't do Snapchat anymore because that was a grave mistake. And I wasn't on Instagram for a while after that either. But in this world we live in, like now, no one gets a newspaper. Everyone just checks Instagram. I have tried to avoid TikTok as much as I could, but, in trying to do the marketing for Albert Taylor and starting the reels and starting those posts, it was almost impossible not to get into TikTok. I mean, if you're going to do Instagram, you might as well do TikTok because TikTok's it's way more volatile. You get way more views. a lot more engagement
Yeah.
depending on what you're posting and whatnot. Ray would say misunderstood. I'd say fuck yeah, absolutely. Mainly in high school though. I'd say college, everyone pretty much knew who I was, but in the same time they didn't because, at high school I was viewed as, I would say, probably like a racist asshole, but I wasn't at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I don't think I was, but I could be perceived as that. In
Yeah.
college, what misunderstood was definitely valid. Freshman year, no one knew me because I didn't, it was COVID and whatnot, so no one really knew anyone. Sophomore year got better, but junior and senior year, I would say there was some times where I'm definitely coming into my own as a real estate agent, and I'm making really good money. I'm making great money. I'm making good money, and I'm making great money as a college kid. And
Yeah.
growing up lower middle class, I never really went without, but there's sometimes like where it was like, all right, like no, you can't have this. I didn't have a silver spoon up my ass, is my point. And giving a college kid, be it 100 grand, 200 grand, they're not going to know how to handle themselves. In all honesty, and I was
Yeah. No,
portrayed
of
as
course.
I was portrayed as a douchebag, and like that is what it is. And like my dearest friends would tell me that, and be like, hey, like I get it, like, but let me ask you, like, if you had 200 grand in college, like, what would you do? Like, I don't
Yeah.
care who you are, like, unless you have $1 billion, right? 200, like me having 200 grand at that time with no overhead expenses was like, fuck, like let's have a good time, you know?
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
let's
Hmm.
go and do whatever. The duality of that statement is I got to see a lot of some of my other roommates who didn't have that. And I definitely could have handled it better, but it also gave me such a strong perspective of, like I've always had $20 personally. I've always had $20. If I want a burrito, I'm getting a burrito. It's just a matter of like what I want. And then I saw
Yeah.
roommates who didn't have $20. And that was eye opening to me just to see that.
Hmm.
So being misunderstood in college, I feel like was just part of who I am. But I misunderstood those who think they know me. Those who know me
Mm.
know what they're getting into, 100%. And I would personally cite an example of after like the adventures at Atlantic Fish, one kid who didn't get he wasn't brought to Atlantic Fish, and that's fine. Like he just wasn't with us when we made the plans. And frankly, if I'm paying for it, like I'll decide who comes.
Yeah.
He
That's yeah.
told
True.
he told one of like my closest friends, and like thinking he wouldn't get back to me was like retarded on his part. He was like, "Damn, it's kind of sad that he's got to buy everyone dinner to make him feel like he has friends." And I was like, "Huh." Like I can see how you can say that considering your position because you're upset you weren't there, but the reason half these people were here was because they helped me at one point, be it
Yeah.
emotionally, be it literally like physically, like help me bring something, move my bed into my dorm or something like that. So I'd say misunderstood is definitely a valid term to define me, but it's
Yeah.
those who know me wouldn't say that, except for Ray, obviously, because
Yeah.
Ray sees it in a lot of different aspects how I am misunderstood.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, that's kind of circles back to the Canada Goose thing, and like I think
Mm-hmm.
people hearing that story could say, "Oh my God, this kid's a freaking jerk."
Yeah,
I
like
mean, he's what is
douchebag,
he trying to
easily,
like?
easily.
Yeah, like he's trying to flex on all of us, how much money. But it's not about
It
that. And
was
the
never
people that
about
really
that.
do know you,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Real quick, what is the term "smoke 'em if you got 'em"? What does that mean, and how can that be used in everyday life? Larry was saying that he uses that a bit more than he expects.
Larry, Larry's my boy. I fucking love him. Smoke if you got him. Honestly, I don't. I mean, the physical term it comes from I think like either like World War II or like Vietnam or like I don't know. It's like after you just did something like, but like I think honestly it's probably in a couple of different movies. Be like, hey boys, like smoke them if you got them. If you have it, if you got it, smoke it. Like light up. Like
Hmm.
now's the time. So if you, I don't even know. I guess I don't even know. um, if the opportunity's there and you've got the time, do it. I guess is the way I'd put it. It's funny that that's what he brings to the table is smoke if you got him. But yeah, fuck yeah.
Dude, yeah. Um, a lot of the people that I reach out to, buddies of yours, they're all positive things, but they did tell me some stories. I mean, be honest, on a scale from 1 to 10, how insane are you?
I think maybe like a 4 or 5, I think is an appropriate
Okay.
measure. But to give you like some
Okay.
concrete examples, like I've definitely done like crazier things. First off, like my Snapchats when I was in high school were pretty mental. Um, but one thing I would do is like I wouldn't eat sometimes if I hadn't closed a deal, I wouldn't eat to the point that way I could go into the showing and to be literally hungry, knowing that I needed to close the deal to put food on the table,
Uh,
the definition of like hunting. Um, I've done that a couple of times, and I'll tell you what, like it works. But there's, I guess, that's one of the crazier things that I've done. That and not prostituting the girls volleyball team, but having the girls volleyball team dress up in spandex and crop tops and making them pass out real estate flyers. That was
yes.
an advertising endeavor that I thought would work really really well because they're all beautiful women and they're all close friends. So I was like, this will sex sells, so like this will be great. And it hurts them to this day that I paid each of them $100, so it cost me like $600 to do, and I got zero return.
Damn.
Yeah.
Sal, I think they wanted you in the spandex. I think that's what the people were hoping for.
Yeah, look, we've all seen the Speedo picture. Look, like we know, like I'm fine. I know I'm a
Put it up
catch.
on the screen. Put it up on the screen.
I don't even know how. um, the Speedo pic
I'll
is
do it. I'll do it in post.
you should,
I'll put
yeah,
it up
you
on the
guys.
screen.
Look, I'll be honest. Like the story behind that picture was actually to settle a debt. Believe it or not. So my dad had sent me to Florida to take care of an elderly woman, and you know, it was a good time, but I'm alone by myself in Florida, and it's in the summer too. It's humid as fuck, and I'm like, all right, like I was like, first off, like if I'm in Florida, I'm at least gonna come back tan, like, and I'm not gonna come back with tan lines. I was like, let me go out and tan my cheeks, like let's make it happen, get up on the roof, spread
Yeah.
out, like let's tan, whatever. I'm not coming back with tan lines, fuck that. And so my dad saw the Amazon purchase with an American flag Speedo, and additionally, I may or may not have racked up a substantial credit card bill while I was out there because boy got to live. Um, so he came, he sat me down. And he was like, "The fuck are we gonna do about this?" And like, I was like, "Ah, shoot, like I don't know." He goes, "Go grab the bathing suit." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And so we did we had to do a photo shoot with me in the with a Pride bath towel and an American flag Speedo. And yeah, maybe I enjoyed it a little bit. Maybe there's some bend in the knee in the photo. Maybe I was posing a little bit. Um, but I'd say like I'm not in that shape anymore, obviously. Post grad, like you do add some weight on immediately,
Oh
which I've
man.
been struggling with. But yeah, so that photo is it's a good one.
That's funny, dude. That's funny. Yeah, I'll put it up on the screen. All right, just to like wrap this up a bit. I mean, where do you think Albert Taylor and Anthony Sal Bruno are in the next 5 years or so? What is that outlook looking like?
I think it's definitely a little bit different now post like new legislation, and I feel like the answer I could give could easily change. Um,
Hmm.
I hope Albert Taylor's still around. I really do. It's my goal to make it still around. I think we have a lot more to understand and we have a lot more room to grow overall. Um, Personally, I feel like I'm still in that role in 5 years. Um, right now, we're really focused on growing the company and trying to add more experienced agents, which is going to be vital for us.
Hmm.
Personally, I'd like to take a step back because right now I'm a broker renting apartments, and that's really not what a broker should be doing. I should just be sitting back and helping other agents rent apartments. And
Yeah.
because we have a lot of part timers, which is frustrating. They still do great work, but they're not in the office every day. We're not creating a culture. We're not breeding an atmosphere. So it's hard to really see our projection because at the end of the day, like Elijah and I can sit back and we can rent apartments all by ourselves, and that's great. We'll make a lot of money, but we're not going to grow something. We're not going to. That's not building the company at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see us. I'd like to see us grow. I'd like to see us expand even more. But it's really hard with real estate to see how that could go. I would say honestly, like, there's a chance we go to business. That's a reality that everyone should be aware of
Yeah.
for any company heading into a recession. That's the sheer reality of the situation. Um, I'd like to think we're still around. I like to think that, I guess in 5 years, maybe I own a house. Maybe I own this current condo if my landlord would sell it to me and stop, saying he's going to move back in. I don't think that's ever going to happen. Um, I love where I like my situation now, but I would also say that in some shape or form, I'm going to have to get uncomfortable again. And I'm not sure what that looks
Yeah.
like, you know,
Mm,
being uncomfortable is probably the best way to grow. I would say to
absolutely.
anyone, whether it be post grad or even in high school, is make yourself uncomfortable. You'll realize, a ton of new interest, and there's so much more opportunity for growth. And right now, I'd say I'm pretty comfortable, which I don't like, but I've yet to see the opportunity where I can really grow. And going back to one of your original questions, like why did I open up Albert Taylor? Well, I felt like I had done everything I could, and that like as an agent, and I was ready to try something new, but
Yeah.
also have the ability to fall back on being an agent. So I could be an agent, and still be a broker and, understand how to run a company. And I don't care who you are, running a company at 23 or 22 isn't exactly easy to anyone. And I live the life of someone who's like about, 30 years old, to be very honest. And seeing that in a lot of different ways, people, I'm not going to say that I'm famous because I'm not, but I'm well known around certain areas of Boston. And dealing with that at a young age was difficult because there
Hmm.
was the first time, this has been long before TikTok and Instagram, but, I got recognized after a very long and very hard day. And, it was like the last one of the day, and I was like, shirts untucked, like hair's undone, like fuck. And then someone like walks up to me and like snaps a selfie. And I was like, who the fuck are you? I was like, do I even fucking know you? And they're like, oh my gosh, like you're that realtor, like you rent with my friends. I was like, okay, like what? Um, like that was the first time it happened, and I really grew to dislike it. And then also going out, you know, David says I don't have an off button. That's funny considering I know what he's done here, post college. We we would go out, and I am the same. My target demographic for the most part is our students, so we're the
Yeah.
same age, so we go to the same bars. So there's an aspect where I can't go to that bar, and if I really wanted to, I can't really get fucked up because I know there's at least one person. I'm going to run into at least three people, and dealing with that in the beginning was hard. I didn't because
Yeah. That's
if
a good point.
if I was a 35-year-old amongst other 35-year-olds and I was like, getting drunk, like how does that look? It looks very bad.
Yeah.
And that's really
Yeah.
how I had to see it. And it
Mm.
became it was difficult. It was difficult to adjust to. Started going to like different areas overall. And then recently, like with the TikTok stuff, again, like I am not claiming we're famous at all, but we've been recognized. I've been getting recognized. I've been recognized probably over 100 times total. But with the TikTok stuff, Elijah gets recognized far more than I do, which is
Mm.
interesting because he hates the TikToks. But I got recognized once, and of course it was like some Northeastern chicks, and we took a selfie and everything, and it was a cool moment. Um, but where do I guess back to your point? Where do I see us? Hopefully we weather the storm, and hopefully I'm a much more experienced sales agent in some aspects.
Yeah. Well, I personally have the confidence in you and Elijah and the rest of the team there.
Thanks.
But speaking the TikTok and Instagram and socials and all that, if people wanted to check out what you're doing, I think they're great. They're entertaining. They're informative. You give great history lessons around the city of Boston. Even if you're just looking, as somebody who's interested in history and things like that, checking out cool places. Where can they go on socials to find your stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So on TikTok and Instagram, it's all Albert Taylor Realty. Like one word. It's right there. And that's Instagram and TikTok. Our website's albert-taylor.us. My personal Instagram, it's tagged and everything, so you can't really miss it. Yeah, no, the TikToks have been fun, except for there's growing understanding the comment section is it's been hard to deal with sometimes. Like there was that one video where, despite all the research I did beforehand, I mispronounced a mobster's last name, and the comments were just unreal, like fake Italian, kill yourself, Gennaro's rolling in his grave. The best one was tourists making videos about Boston. which hurt because I'm from Boston, and I felt like that was it hurt. Um, there's a
Yeah.
ton of stuff, and then but we're understanding it. We're learning how to if you want to drive up engagement, maybe do mispronounce someone's last name, maybe do screw that up because it's gonna blow up and make the comments are gonna go up, the views are gonna go up, and so on. So definitely check them out. Drop a comment if you can. Maybe try and defend me in some comment sections.
I did see a video saying that there's some creators that purposely, you know, tilt a little picture frame in the back or,
Sure.
screw up someone's name or say something, that's like people are drawn to the comments on. So maybe that's your new strategy.
Could
And
be.
so before we go here, I do have some rapid fire questions if
Yeah, hit
that's
me.
okay with you.
We gotta try
This
and
is a
go
new
viral, Will. We gotta try and go viral.
this
So
is
I
a
might just
this
go
is a
on a
new
tangent.
segment all submitted from your own business partner Elijah.
Oh,
All
really?
right. Now I had to filter out a few of them,
Sure.
but here we're gonna go. All right.
All right.
First one. Who's Christina Powers and what's your absolute obsession with her?
Christina Powers is the fucking homie. I'm not without her. Um, Love that girl to death. Seriously, anything that she ever needs, I have her. You need to know that post breakup, Christina saved me from moving to Nashville and throwing my life away, and I'm forever grateful for her. So that's as quick of a rapid fire answer as I can give. But she knows where she stands, and she's the homie.
Nice. All right. What's the cringiest thing to do to get a date?
Cringiest? I don't know. Cringiest. What's the craziest thing I've ever done to get a date? Might be
Maybe
better.
what's the cringiest thing you've done?
Well, so I got to be careful because there's, right now there's still a chapter that's writing itself that I can't share. But, in past, there's been some stuff. I'd say I can't share that one. You know, we might want to cut out this silence, Will. I got to think.
You can also just say pass.
No, I don't want to say pass. It might be, I know who it is. The story is, it's super quick. I'll bang it out. It was during that, like, January, which is my busiest month. And I'd matched with this girl on Tinder. I didn't know who she was, whatever. And she ended up somehow being a client, which was interesting. And
Oh man.
I didn't realize that until, like, after the point of no return, if you know what I'm saying. Like, there was things that had been said, and then I was like, then she gave me her number, and I typed it in my phone, and it was an existing, like, I was like, and I swear to God, like Mrs. McAllister in Home Alone, I, like, shoot up from my bed, and I'm like, oh, shit. But, she was hot. She was very valid. And I would say what the cringiest thing I did was I lied and said I had business out in Vermont when I had no business out in Vermont, and went to see her, and then she found out I lied and then didn't see me. So in theory, I drove 6 hours round trip for nothing. That's a true story.
Damn.
Yeah, that's one.
All right. Sal, why do you shave your eyebrows?
I have not. I have not ever shaved my eyebrows. That is not something I've partaken in.
Okay. What do your neighbors think of you?
Well, so I live in a very old building that is somehow filled with Russians. So the upstairs lady has a gong. She's Korean. Next door on this side, she's an old bitch. I've had numerous noise complaints because of her. And then the people in the back, they don't seem to give a fuck, which is great because they hear most of the noise. That's where the bedroom is. Downstairs, not a problem. I will say though, there is something going on with with one of the cleaning ladies in the building, constantly being in Elijah's DMs. That's a developing story. I'm not quite sure, but I've yet to, like, really reap the rewards of it. I mean, if you're gonna try and, like, slide into his pants, at least like, clean my apartment for me. Like, I could probably help you out if she sees this.
Oh man. All right. The next one. This one just says favorite cream pie ?
Boston cream pie, 100%. An unreleased Albert Taylor Realty video.
Okay. All right. Favorite movie character?
Favorite movie character. I'd probably say I'd probably go with Joe Pesci in, like, any role, but specifically in Goodfellas.
Okay. Best strategy on Hinge?
Well, I'm not on Hinge, so I don't know what that means.
Okay. How do Mac on chicks at Game On?
who the fuck asked that?
This is a lot. These are all Elijah.
There's no way
Sorry
it's Elijah.
sorry to put you out, Elijah.
Yeah, I don't go to a game on anymore, so I can't answer that question. But if I did, you know, it's just, you know, if I did go to game on, which I don't, you know, you just gotta like wait for the right song to come on. You know, like eventually, you know, maybe accidentally bump into, you know, some fine shit, and then like, oh, what? Now she's on my dick. Like, whatever. There you go. Super easy, fucking peasy. Works like a charm, but you know, just use it with caution, because it will get dangerous.
All right, that's powerful. All right, and then the last one, I guess, on a little lighthearted note. What's the first thing you eat every morning?
First thing I eat in the morning, it's no longer the smoothie, though it has been sometimes. It's either a banana or a smoothie with a banana in it. Just quick and easy.
Sal, thanks for coming on, dude. You've been entertaining, most colorful podcast that I've done to date. So thanks for coming on, sharing your story, sharing your expertise. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Yeah, maybe you know, I'll do it again. Maybe get a part 2 in there, ask some different questions, and you know, hope the pod does well. I really do.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, man.
You got it, Will.